So, how many of you have had the experience of circling the block again and again and again because you don't want to pay the £20 that it's going to cost to pay for paid parking, right? I mean, this evening is going to cost £200 easily. You've got the babysitter, you've got the movie, you've got dinner, right? This is going to be an expensive evening. But that last £20 is really irritating. I spent a lot of time thinking about that £20. And not because I'm cheap, or not just. I spend a lot of time thinking about that £20 because of George. So George also has a £20 problem. George is from Nigeria, and he actually cleans, I met him because he cleans the building where Epiphyte's headquarters are housed. And George doesn't just circle the block. George lives way out there, like Zone 6, like Scotland. And he spends at least 5 hours a day, every single day in a commute. He's got night classes that he takes. He has to go to the different places he has to clean. He has to go back, come to work in the center of town, and then he has to go back. And when he gets back home, he's in a room with 3 other guys from Nigeria, right? 3 beds in a little room, in a house with 9 guys in it. Now, over the last few days and weeks, there's been a lot of talk about immigrants. There's been a lot of talk about migrants. And a lot of it, I don't think, is talking about it from their perspective. George is everything we admire. He's hardworking, he's educating himself, he's thrifty, he saves his money, and when he does spend it, he spends it on his family. And the way we treat him is deplorable. Because every time, once a week, George manages to put together £200 to send home, and we fine him. Our system taxes him 10%, £20, right, that we don't want to pay for parking. This guy is not able to send back to his mother because Western Union or one of the other large companies is going to take it as their fee. The thing is that George is salt of the earth, right? George is everything we want in our societies, and George is a hero, and we don't treat him right. And the reason we don't treat him right is complicated. Now today, on this stage, later, there will be a company called Azimo. Azimo are a remittance company, and they are one of a large number of companies like TransferWise, like WorldRemit, who are making really important strides in tackling this problem, making George's problem smaller. But they're all shackled to the same problem. They all have to deal with an old banking system. They all have to deal with legacy rails. And here's what we know about the legacy rails. All the money has already been digitized. And in a digitized world, right, in a world of wired money, we expect transactions to be instantaneous, cheap, and risk-free. And they are. If you're transferring funds from one account that you have with HSBC to another account you have with HSBC, it's instantaneous. If you are moving money within PayPal from one person to another, it's free, right? There's zero risk. And today, in some countries, like the UK, if you're utilizing faster payments, your experience is free and instant. And that's the way we're expecting money to work. But when you get outside, if you start trying to perform transactions between payment systems, so you've got a PayPal wallet and you're trying to send money to someone who has a PayM wallet or some kind of other mobile wallet, it's not just difficult, it's impossible. They don't interoperate. If you're trying to send money overseas, or you're trying to spend your credit card on a vacation to the in the United States, you're going to be spending £20 like nothing without even noticing it just on the FX fees and the commissions that you're going to be paying. Our system breaks down and becomes expensive, slow, and risky whenever you're trying to perform transactions between systems. And here's the reason why. So how do banks, let's say we're looking at 2 developed countries, the United States and Japan, and I want to send money from my account in the US to somebody's account in Japan. It's not like my bank on my behalf is going to move funds out of that account and send it directly to the bank in Japan. Instead, you've got a situation like 6-year-olds, right? playing pass the parcel, right? I know the bank right next to me. I have a trusted relationship with them. I'm going to give them the money. They're going to hand it over to the next bank in the line. And this is called corresponding banking, right? The banking version of pass the parcel. Except, unlike 6-year-olds, every single stop along that way has to take a cut. And one other way in which banks are not like 6-year-olds, there's actually no parcel. In fact, it's not really accurate to say it's like pass the parcel. It's more like the game of whispers. It's more like, the game Broken Telephone, where one kid whispers into the ear of the other. And the problem with the Broken Telephone game, with the game of whispers, is you don't know what's going in is exactly what's coming out. Information gets lost. Things get distributed. In international transactions, 7% of international transactions get delayed, reversed, or lost. How many times have you tried to send money overseas, you've called your bank, the guy on the other end hasn't received it, you ask where your money is, and they're like, right? I don't know. So this game of whispers is the cause of the problem. And the reason it exists is because there's no money. All there is a relationship, a series of trusted relationships about people's own internal recording, about banks' own internal recording. And so where Epiphyte comes into the picture here is we're doing something which a number of other companies are trying to do. We're taking blockchain technology, the entire interchain stack, so Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Lightning, and maybe some others that you haven't heard about. And we're utilizing this interchain to provide a fabric, one open transaction system that makes all of these different systems interoperable. We're providing an alternative to corresponding banking. And our primary customers are customers who are doing remittances or doing FX transactions or looking to do interoperable systems between mobile wallets. And in our world, a transaction really does go from one person to another. It's no longer the game of whispers, it's more like the game of catch, right? What we're doing is taking advantage of the fact that Bitcoin, or in the Ripple world, XRP, or other types of digital assets that exist in the interchain are an actual thing. That once they've been sent, you know with certainty that they've left the sender. You know exactly where they are. Their transactions are riskless, basically instantaneous, and very, very cheap. And it's being able to utilize this system, which we think is really the revolution of wired money, of creating an internet of value. So one of the examples that we've utilized to describe what we're doing is the work that we've been doing with one of our customers, Visa, right? So the thing about a Visa card is a Visa card, you can't send money from one Visa card to another very easily. With a mobile app, perhaps you can, but try to utilize a Visa card with a different system, right? With a restaurant that only accepts American Express, and you're out of luck. We looked at this problem with Visa, and we said, can we allow customers to initiate transactions from their debit or credit account and send them to anywhere, to any other system? And one of the systems that we've been sending money to is to Africa, to mobile money providers like M-Pesa, right, in Africa. And the way we do it is like this. We have 3 hops in our system. One hop is where the payment is initiated on the Visa network. Funds are then converted into a digital asset or several types of digital assets, depending on what's going to be most efficient, on the interchain, and using these blockchain technologies. And then the funds are retranslated into Kenyan shillings or Nigerian naira on the other side, and basically are hopping between 3 different payment systems. And they can do it instantaneously and at very low cost. I'm actually going to try and show this to you. Now, I'm not sure this is going to work because we've been having interoperability problems all day long with the HDMI cable. All right, so here we have my phone. Let's see if I can grow it. No. All right, so here we have my phone. I'm going to choose one of my credit card accounts. I'm going to choose the HSBC one. I'm going to choose to send funds to Mickey, who is one of our developers in Nigeria. And I'm going to choose an amount. And the amount I'm going to send is what we consider our magic trick. It's an amount of money which is so ridiculously small that it shouldn't be possible. Today, in other systems, it's impossible to send overseas. I'm going to try, assuming it allows me to. I'm going to introduce £1, and I'm going to send. And then you can see here, hopefully, that it's going to be sending funds to his phone, directly from my phone, but initiated over a credit card account. And the cost for the transaction is 2 pence. And I send the transaction, and within less than 2 minutes, it will be completely settled. So if we can go back to the slides. That's a 2 pence transaction, cross-border, at zero, with a very, very small amount, across 3 different systems, settled in 2 minutes. That is the magic of blockchain. And what it ends up providing you with is an order of magnitude savings, real-time tracking, potentially global access with true internet-style interoperability between systems. And it's not something that you're reliant on Epiphyte to provide. Epiphyte is just one of the providers who are providing a secure, compliant gateway into this world. We are interoperable with our competitors, and we take pride in that. It's an entirely different way of thinking about money, and it's the way that George now thinks about his money. The way he sends his funds back home now is utilizing our system, right? So what we see here, the reason we're excited about this, is because this solves a real problem in a way which flattens the ecosystem and saves money for everyone involved, with possibly 2 exceptions. Today, 85% of the transactions out of Africa to East Asia, to North America, to South America, they go through one of 2 intermediaries, Citibank and JP Morgan. As you can imagine, this is not a particularly competitive market, right? It doesn't necessarily change very often. It doesn't necessarily have the best fees. We're able to offer an alternate route. And the fact that Epiphyte, which is a very small and young company, we've been around for just over 2 years, can offer an alternate route to JP Morgan or to Citibank is what we think is so exciting about all of this. In many ways, I think we as a company, and certainly myself, are blockchain skeptics, right? We don't believe that blockchain is going to do all of the things that people say it's going to do. We don't think it's going to happen soon, maybe not ever. And we think that there's been a huge amount of hype around things which are probably never going to materialize. But we're excited about this because this is actually happening. The ability to take trust out of the equation for transactions is critical, and it's important. And it solves a real problem. And so, from our perspective, that is worth all of the hype. What we're looking at now, what we're looking at today, is a world in which the Internet of Money already exists. The only question now, the only thing that remains for all of us, is just to get online. Thank you very much.
So Edan, you're, as you say, a relatively new, relatively small startup based just around the corner from Old Street. Yet you're taking on a big problem. You're fighting for market share with some big incumbents. How helpful is it being in London?
That's so I think one of the things that makes Epiphyte special is we're the only company we know of that was founded in San Francisco, the heart of Silicon Valley, and moved to London. And the reason we moved to London is because of the weather and the food. But also, the regulation is far better here. We've managed to interface with the regulators in a way which we never could in the US. There's a level of openness here which is really important. And there's a huge amount of customers here. And it's the largest FX center in the world. So we think that it's a no-brainer for us to be in London, and we think London can really become sort of like the fintech Silicon Valley in many ways.
And how competitive is it to get the talent that you need to keep building your team if there are so many other finance tech businesses?
It's very competitive, and we actually have an R&D team in Tel Aviv. London is problematic in that respect. I think that's sort of one of the ways in which London is uneven still as a tech center, is that there's a lot of support. And the two things which are kind of still missing is a lot of investors who have a great deal of experience in building startups, and the dev talent, which is still can be a mixed bag.
So last question, from the point of view of the agile, nimble startup, give one message to the people from the more established financial businesses here that maybe they need to know and aren't quite aware of how urgently they need to know it.
Right. I think compliance is so the thing about regulation and compliance, regulation is all about doing things which are regular. Innovation is all about the irregular. And we think that some of the work that we're doing, for example, completely restructures the way you perform a transaction and the way you think about the supply chain. Compliance, we feel, too often ends up being the person who says no in a conversation with larger institutions that we're talking to too early. And so we think that it's important to have compliance be involved in the innovation and challenge compliance to figure out how they can encourage innovation as well. We've seen some of our banking customers do it to great success.
Edan from Epiphyte, thank you.
Thank you very much.